Good evening, ladies and gents, and welcome to another video on All Hail the Ale. This is a little bit different, this one. This is a bit of a tasting session. And the three beers in question are currently available for 50p a can in Tesco. And that's a bit of a bargain. We don't know how much longer they're going to be around for 50p. Might disappear completely. They might go up to normal price. Who knows? Anyway, the beers are from Crate, and they are in order of ABV. The Session IPA at 3.6%. We have this one, the Pale, at 4.5%. And last but not least, we have the IPA at 6% exactly. Now, this is take two of the video because I just sat waffling for about half an hour, including a battery change on this one. And guess what? This Muppet didn't turn on the microphone. It's all plugged in, which means we had no audio, so we're starting again. I've already poured, therefore, in order of lowest to highest ABV, we have the Session IPA. It's relatively, well, it's not heavily carbonated. We've got thin head, it's light in colour, and it's ever so slightly hazy. The next up in ABV is the Pale, which is at 4.5%. It's another light beer, ever so slightly lighter. This one, when poured, had a bit more head. We had about 2 fingers of head, and it's lightly carbonated to medium carbonation, and it's a nice looking glass of beer. Last but not least, in top spot at 6% is the darkest beer of the three, and it's the IPA. It's again, when poured, had about 2 fingers of head, and is light to medium carbonation. So we're going to start with the flavours of the three beers, and then we're going to go on to the finish, and then we'll give you a bit of an idea of the aromas, just for shits and giggles. So I'm doing the aromas last, just to mix it up a bit. I normally do them first. So the flavours of the Session IPA are very light, a little touch of pine resin, and we're talking a tiny touch here. It's well balanced. You've got a sensible level of hop. You've got a little bit of malt coming through. It's a very pleasant, inoffensive, safe beer. And I say safe beer because it's the kind of beer that you would buy in and keep in the fridge for people who you really don't know what they like. You know, it's inoffensive to anyone. It will appeal to people who like a lager because it's light. It will appeal to people who like ale because you've got those malty flavours coming through with a little bit of hop. And hell, it could appeal to just about anyone. So that is the Session IPA at 3.6%. Up next is the Pale, which is at 4.5%, and that one, again, it's well balanced. A little bit more emphasis on the malt this time, for me anyway. The hops, again, are there, but they perhaps play second fiddle to the malt here. But again, it's light, refreshing, and a sensible ABV, and inoffensive to the taste buds. It will appeal to many. That is a good thing. The IPA, though, this one, immediately the hops are central to the whole thing. They're more prominent, they're more fruity, and I get a little bit of a strawberry note, and I like it a lot. If you like things like Northern Monk's Neapolitan IPA, but wish it was just dialed back in terms of the sweetness, because that one for me is a sweet, sweet beer. This is the kind of thing that is similar in flavour, but without that lactose sweetness and that side order of diabetes that everyone really wants, I think, maybe. Anywho, sweeter, hoppier, a little bit more bitter. My favourite of the three. It's one I could sit and drink because it's a little bit more sort of bitterness. You've got that resin, you've got that fruit, you've got that hop. Ticks my boxes very, very well. Going back to the beginning though, for the finish and the body. We'll talk about finish and the body. So body first. On the Session IPA, naturally so, it's lower ABV. There's less going on in terms of body. It's light to medium body at best. So more emphasis towards the light. The finish is clean, it's sweet, inoffensive again. It's not drying in any way, it's not cloying, it's not sitting around. It's a pretty good palate cleanser really. If you're having a barbecue and you had something like a barbecue sauce on your chicken wings or whatever, it clean your palate nicely. It would leave you clean and refreshed. And then the pale, 4.5, has got a similar body, a little bit more to it than the Session IPA, and again the finish is sweet, a bit more emphasis on the malt, and it's a little bit drier, but again fresh, clean taste on the finish. Nothing heavy, nothing overly prominent. And the IPA, it's got the heaviest body of the three, but it's by no means heavy in any way, shape or form. Medium body to this one, and the finish is probably the driest of the three as well. That kind of resin kind of just leaves you, what's the word I'm looking for? Don't know. Let's have another sip and find out, see if it'll come to me. That feeling when you get a fresh shave, like I had earlier today, and you put an alcohol containing aftershave on it, just tightens everything up and kind of leaves you really, really fresh. Really kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? It's not spongy, as if my hand would kind of indicate that I'm implying. No, it's not spongy. Astringent is that kind of effect. It works really, really well. And just one thing I want to point out before we disappear on this video is the little chart that Crate put on their cans. It's a little spider web chart. That's I've pressed a button on the camera and it's not tracking the focus very well. 2 seconds. No. Maybe. Have I pressed the right one? I don't know. Yes, there we go. Put the autofocus, the tracking focus back on. There we go. There's your chart. It kind of gives you a bit of an indication of what's going on in the beer. So that's the IPA. You might want to pause it and get a good idea of what's going on in the IPA. It clearly indicates it's sweeter and hoppier than it is malty and bitter. The pale indicates a little bit more balance overall. If you look at that, that is much more balanced on the pale. And the Session IPA indicates it's a bit more hoppy and bitter, but I'm implying that it's less hoppy than they suggest. But then again, like I said earlier, I like to be smashed in the face with hops. So, if I was to rank them in order of my preference, I'm not going to give them a score because that's unfair. Well, it's not unfair, it's just something I'm not covering in this video. In order of preference from least favourite to most favourite, I like them all. But if I had to say, in third place, an honourable entrant in the 3 Crate offerings is the pale. Now, I like the pale, but there's just a little bit of something that I prefer about the Session IPA, which comes in second place, because it's a little bit more, it's got a little bit more life about the flavour than the pale. I'm not going to say there's more hops because they're both very well balanced, but it's just got a little bit more something that I like. And of course that leaves my favourite of the 3, the regular run-of-the-mill 6% IPA. It's hoppier, it's a little bit sweeter. You've got a strawberry note which you don't find in beer very often, and it's got the coolest logo on there as well. You've got the maize. Look at that. I love that little maize in the cube. It's just great. So there we are. That was the tasting session from Crate Beers. All currently available. How much longer for, I don't know. At 50p a can in Tesco. Ladies and gents, boys and girls, I've been Nick, and I'll see you again soon in another video. Bye.